When you're depressed and when you're just in such a bad place mentally, you're very unenjoyable to be around. And I can recognize that. Like, it's hard for people to be around me.
There comes a time in our lives when we realize that our way just isn't working. It's been said that doing the same thing over and over again while also expecting different results is insanity. I believe that a big part of our humanness is to be seekers. We're always searching for something, whether that be happiness, peace, success, love. We're always searching and often rarely content.
I just feel so alone.
For a long time, that was me. I was searching. I was on a quest to find peace within myself. I strongly desired to feel fulfilled inside, but didn't notice that the route I was going and the things of this world that I desperately held on to were in fact just making me feel more and more empty.
I don't know why I'm still here. I really don't know why I'm still here.
I had no idea that what I was really searching for was right in front of me all along, or better yet, within me.
I'm like in this life completely by myself.
If you take a fish out of water, eventually it will die. If you take a tree out of soil, eventually it will also die. I believe that we are meant to dwell with our Creator, and without that connection, we too will die.
To get it out of my head because I don't have anybody to talk to. I don't have anybody to like throw thoughts around. It's lonely. It's so lonely.
Genesis 1:26 says God made man in his image, and this is unlike any other thing that was made. This is the story of how I found God, or better yet, how he found me.
Hey guys, it's your girl Justin. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am really excited because I am finally going to be sharing with you guys my testimony. This is such a special thing for me to share. I believe it's the most important, most valuable story I could ever tell someone. And I don't even want to give too much of a long intro. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into it. So for starters, I'm gonna kind of give you guys like, I guess, a background into my faith journey, into how I grew up. To make a long story short, I grew up in the church, but I never had a real personal connection to God. When I was really young, like baby up until elementary, I was in the Catholic Church. I did get baptized as a baby. I also remember going through like the catechism program, taking First Communion, going through several of the sacraments in the Catholic Church. And then probably around the time I was in elementary school, my grandmother, my dad's mom, she started taking my brother and I to her church on Sundays. And she goes to like a non-denominational church, so it's not really like a specific denomination, but it's definitely very different from the Catholic Church. And then around the time I was in high school, My mom and my stepdad, they started going to a Baptist church. Now, I kind of was going back and forth. Sometimes I would go to them to their church. Sometimes I would still go with my grandma to the non-denominational church. But either way, I was going to somebody's church any given Sunday. Then eventually, probably towards like the later part of, oh, by the way, before this, I did end up getting baptized a second time in the Baptist church. Actually, that had to have been middle school because I think I was like 13 maybe. I remember my mom, my brother, and I, all three of us got baptized at the same time in the Baptist church. I remember going down and coming up and being wet afterwards, but if I'm being honest, I don't really think I understood the significance of what we were doing. But that was that. Then towards like high school years, my mom and my stepdad actually ended up, they moved churches and they started going to the same church that my grandmother took me to growing up. So now all of them are at the same church. And so I started continually going to that church pretty much every single Sunday and a lot of like Wednesdays. And on top of this, from like 5th grade to, I want to say 7th grade, yeah, I was actually in a Christian school. So not only was I, involved in church on the weekends and on Wednesdays, we had chapel every single morning at school. And what is crazy, you would think somebody with all of this church exposure would just know the Lord, but sadly I did not. I did not know God for myself. I mean, I learned some things here and there. And if you would have asked me for the first 26 years of my life if I was a Christian, of course, absolutely I'm a Christian. I didn't know until I actually became a Christian that I wasn't a Christian because I didn't know what I believed in. I knew about Jesus and I knew that he died on a cross. And I think if I thought long enough, like I knew he died for our sins just because I had heard it, but I didn't know why he did it and who is Jesus related to God and why did he have to die for, like I didn't understand it. It was just like I'm Christian by association and I'm Christian to hopefully not go to hell because that's a place that people say that you don't want to go to. So yeah, that's pretty much my history when it comes to growing up. Once I got into college, I kind of just started not going because I didn't really have to. Every now and then I would pop up here and there, but for the most part, like throughout my college years and then especially after college, I just was not really involved in the church, didn't really care. Like that's the biggest thing, like I didn't really care to have a relationship with God. And I remember especially at my grandma's non-denominational church, I would see people speaking in tongues, people running around the church, people getting slain in the spirit. And it's not necessarily that like it's not that I thought it was fake. I just assumed whatever they got, I ain't got. And maybe one day when I'm older, I would always think that like, I'm sure when I'm older, I'll be like that. Like I'll be more like my grandma and the people in the church. But as of right now, I don't really care to do all that. So yes, moving forward throughout life, I didn't really care about God or religion or anything like that. I still considered myself a Christian if you asked me, but was I walking with the Lord? Absolutely not. It wasn't until 2022, I had to think about it. Gosh, it's already been 2 years. It wasn't until the year 2022 that actually kind of sparked for me. So moving up until that point, I will just go ahead and tell you guys that your girl was lost. And not lost in the sense of just out here wilding. I really wasn't a wild person. Even before I was saved, I never liked like going to the clubs. I was never into smoking, drinking, anything like that. In that sense, that's not really what I'm talking about like behaviorally, but just like as far as feeling like, what am I doing in this world? Like, what is my purpose? I really struggled with that. And also with just finding happiness. I just learned a term the other day that I was like, oh, that's what I was definitely having. And it's called destination happiness. And basically what that is that you're always looking to the future to define happiness for you. So something that I would do is that, like, I would be in a situation and I would be unhappy, and I would always think like, man, if I could just get to the next thing, then I'll be happy. So I remember, you know, when I was living here and that wasn't good enough, and I'm like, you know, once I move out, that I'll be happy then. And then I would move out and I would have, you know, some temporary highs, and then eventually I would just be like, this ain't really working. And then I would be like, okay, well, maybe I should move to a nicer apartment. And then I would move there and it would be a little bit of happiness for a while, and then that would fade. And then let me move to a nicer apartment, and oh, that's still not working out. Let me move to another city, and that's not working out. And let me move to another state. And so I just kept moving places, and also like moving jobs, and just like trying to change my situation and thinking that once I get to the next place, that's when it'll make sense, and that's when I'll finally like be at peace and find happiness. And I'm here to tell you it just never worked out. So I went through several years of just constantly moving. Like, I don't think I was anywhere for any longer than a year and a half, just constantly moving from place to place to place. Ended up moving to several different cities, and I landed myself in San Antonio, Texas. So the reason I even went to San Antonio, I used to be like obsessed with Houston in high school, because it just seemed like everybody and their mama graduated high school and moved to Houston. I don't know if that was just something that was specific to my class, but it just seemed like so many of my classmates went to Houston. And then also at the time, I watched a lot of YouTubers and bloggers and stuff that were in Houston. So I literally didn't know anybody in Houston, like personally, as far as family, but I just knew that's the goal. That's where I need to be. And to make a long story short, Houston didn't really work out for a while. I was kind of set on Dallas because my dad lived there, and my mom had talked about maybe moving there at some point. Dallas also did not work out. And then my dad actually ended up moving back to San Antonio because he was already there, then went to Dallas for a little bit, and then came back to San Antonio. So whenever that transition happened, I decided, you know what, the place that I was living at, which was Shreveport, it wasn't working out for me. Mentally, I think my mental health was already like kind of on a decline. I was in a very toxic relationship that was ending, but I was still wanting it to continue, but it was just not good. Also, I had gained a lot of weight back. I had lost a bunch of weight and did it publicly here on YouTube. That's how I ended up with this channel. And it was all fine and dandy while I was losing, but once I started gaining, that just was really hard on me. And then also dealt with some bullying and stuff on here, and just overall not really in a great place. Another thing that I really struggled with was just my identity. I didn't really know who I was, and I didn't have a strong sense of self and Justin. And because of that, I gave a lot of emphasis and weight into my own value through other people. So I would look to other people to tell me who I was and if I was valuable enough, not only through their words, but their actions. And that definitely just wasn't great. So there was a lot going on. I'm trying my best to frame it for you guys, but just know that this was like a gradual, about 2 to 3 years of my mental health just like kind of plummeting. So I ended up moving to San Antonio. I lived with my dad for probably like a little over a year, and then I ended up moving into my own apartment there. So once I took the step to move to San Antonio, I thought everything was going to be great, and I was like, maybe I'm just ready for like a bigger city life, because I've been in these smaller towns and I don't know, maybe this will just be great. And it was for a while. Like I truly enjoyed being in Texas. But one quote that I've always heard growing up is no matter where you go, there you are. And that was like a true testament. One thing that I could not escape from going from place to place, house to house, city to city was myself. And I just wasn't happy with myself. So all of this not so great stuff led me to kind of I guess the first place we can pick up on, which was around, I think, June 2022. Now, around this time, I'm living in my own apartment in San Antonio. I have a job. I'm working at a call center, and I've been there for almost a year now. Even though I don't like that job, I do like it because it's like a great distraction from my own just mental stuff that I have going on. I'm also very heavily addicted to social media. So I would get up, go to work, you know, get there around like 8, get off around 5. By the time I come home, I probably get something to eat, like fast food, and I would spend the rest of my evening scrolling on my phone. It was really sad because like I genuinely could not like stop myself from scrolling. I was just so heavily addicted to TikTok and YouTube and just all kinds of stuff. And sorry guys, I'm trying to like summarize a 2-year story into one quick video. Maybe a few months before this, I actually ended up going to a psychiatrist because I was convinced that I had ADHD. My memory, like I could not remember anything for anything. I felt like I had no motivation and no will to do anything. And through like looking at TikTok, I guess I had just like resonated a lot with other people who had ADHD. And I was just thinking like, man, I need medication. Like maybe if I get on some kind of, I don't know, is a stimulant like Adderall, Vyvanse, something like that, that will help me like get things done. My real issue was like I was addicted to social media, but anyway, I was just convinced that I had ADHD. So I got an appointment with a psychiatrist in Texas, went there, told her my whole spiel. She did a test, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, just basically asking me a bunch of questions to confirm, is this what I'm dealing with? And at the end, I was very sad because she was like, well, I don't really think you have ADHD, but you definitely, you have depression and anxiety. I remember when she told me this, I was like, girl, duh, like, that's not what I came to you for, which is so sad to think about. I was so used to dealing with the depression and anxiety. I didn't need a doctor to tell me that that's what I had. I already knew that. But like, I'm like, okay, like I didn't even care to try to go down that path. I don't know if I didn't think it was going to work or what, but yeah, I was kind of just annoyed that she wouldn't give me some medication for having ADHD. But anyway, she was like, I'm going to start you on some medication for depression and anxiety. So I had 2 separate medication, started taking that. To be honest, I really don't feel like they did anything, but I was on that for a while. Anyway, that's that. Moving forward, it's July 2022. Another really, really big issue, I guess, that I had is that I didn't have any friends. I haven't really had like close friends since I was in high school. And at this point, that had been like for 8 years. I had a few like acquaintances here and there that like I would text. But as far as like close friendships, people that I can share things with, like I know their business, they know my business, like I can confide in them. I did not have that at all. And it was very lonely. Also with family, I had family. I have a big family, but kind of the same thing. Nobody in my family knew to the extent that I was struggling. Most conversations were pretty surface level. I just wasn't really close with anyone and just made me feel very lonely. But thankfully, one of the good things that did come out of me being there and me being at the job that I was at is that I actually did eventually end up making a friend. I they sat me next to, because it was a big call center, a bunch of cubicles everywhere, and they sat me next to this lady. She was a little bit older, and just over time we became really close, and we worked right next to each other. So for 8 hours a day we're sitting right next to each other. We would go to lunches together. I was starting to meet her family. Like, it was just really nice because I hadn't really had like any kind of like friendship, companionship, anything in quite a bit of time. And to make a long story short, we became close. And then one day she came to me and she was like, I'm leaving. And it's funny because I actually didn't believe her at first. I was like, what do you mean you're leaving? And she was like, I got a new job. When I tell y'all, once I actually like found out she was being for real, because I didn't believe her at first, her leaving our place of employment literally triggered me in a way that I don't even know why. I was so upset because I'm like, I finally found somebody after like just basically being alone for so many years, and like now you're leaving. Like, I was so upset that she was leaving. So much so, the last like 2 weeks, because she gave her notice, the last 2 weeks of her being there, I hardly talked to her because I was just that upset. And me now talking about it, it sounds so immature, but in the moment it felt so real, and I was so upset because I'm just like, okay, well, back to me being alone then. Like, it was wild. And what's crazy is the job she went to, they did the same thing we were doing. It was just for a different company and for higher pay. And she was actually telling me, because at the time the job she went to was taking a lot of our employees there, and she was like, just apply and you can come with me. She was like, we don't have to like not be together, like let's just like come with me. She was encouraging me too. But by that point I had recognized what I now know is destination happiness. And I was just like, no, like I don't know, something about it. I was just like, I was tired of moving. I was tired of trying to go to the next situation so that will make it better, and I didn't want to follow her. It's not that I didn't want to follow her. I just knew that like it was like I was mad at myself for being mad at her for leaving. I was like, I cannot put my happiness, and I cannot like just be in a bad place now because someone else left. Like, I can't, like, this isn't right. Like, I didn't fully understand it, but I knew that it wasn't right. So her leaving was definitely like the first like just big trigger, because I feel like just having someone, even though honestly to her she didn't even know that I was struggling that much, but just having someone that I could just talk to on a daily basis was just so much for me. And now having that stripped, I was angry, y'all. So I could feel me, after she told me she was leaving, I could feel me like just getting in a dark place. I was like, wow, for real, like, okay, this is what it's gonna be. And y'all, this has nothing to do with her and everything to do with me, so please, I know it sounds extremely immature, but this is just how it was. I could feel myself just like thoughts were coming up that I was like, what's the point of me being here? I just like, I don't know, my friendship with her kind of numbed that for a while, because those were already thoughts that I've been having for years, but it kind of at least numbed it for like a little bit. Like, at least I have somebody to talk to, somebody to communicate with, I don't know. But once that was ripped away, like, it just went plummet for me. And I remember one day I was leaving work and I could just tell that like I was dreading going home. And I think like I knew, like, I didn't trust my thoughts and my actions too. So I decided, I'm like, you know what, let me reach out to someone so that I'm not alone, because I just don't think that I should be alone right now. And I ended up calling my dad, and I just asked him, if they were home, and they said, yeah, him, my little sister, my brother, and his wife. I asked if they were home. He said, yeah. And I was like, do you mind if I come by real quick? And he was like, yeah, sure. I was like, I just want to hang out for a little while. So, I left my job. and I drove to the house, and they weren't there. And I was knocking at the door. Nobody was answering. I was calling. Nobody was picking up the phone. And I was just really confused. And I'm like, okay, that's really weird. Like, I just talked to y'all. So I was like annoyed, but I'm like, okay, I guess, like, I don't know. So eventually I left and I went home. Now this is July 2022. I left and I went home, and I think like on my way like up the stairs to my apartment, my dad had texted me and he was like, oh hey, sorry I missed your call, we went to the movies. Now let me preface by saying I love my family and I have no qualms with them, but just to be very honest, in this moment that sets me off completely. I was already triggered by my friend leaving. And now I'm like, I'm in a bad place. I'm trying to do the right thing and be around people. But that just completely set me off. And I felt like, dang, like, you couldn't tell me? Like, I was hurt. Honestly, I was hurt. And I remember I was angry and I came through my apartment door, and I took my phone, I first turned it off, and I slung it across my bedroom. And at the time, my kind of like here, my bed was touching the wall, and just so happened the phone fell right in the middle, in between my bed and the wall, and it landed on the floor, and it stayed there for a while. I was so just upset, and I didn't even know why I was upset, and it just wasn't a good time. And I already felt like all the thoughts and everything. And I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. What am I doing here? Like, just everything started coming to a head. And now looking back, a lot of those things were just not that big of a deal. But it was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was a lot of stuff going on that just tiny little things were setting me off. After I threw my phone, I was crying and I was upset, and I ended up going to sleep. And I kept taking like melatonin gummies to keep me asleep because I didn't want to deal with anything or anybody. And so I think I probably slept for a good like 24 hours. I would just wake up to, use the bathroom or eat something here or there, and then just go back to sleep. And by the way, that was a Friday that this happened, so going into the weekend. And then I think by the time I actually woke up for real again, it was now Saturday night. And I remember just sitting on my couch in my apartment, and I was just, this is what I would call my deepest, darkest day. My deepest, darkest moment. The thoughts were just, why am I here? I don't need to be here. It was just dark. And the more I sat with myself and just sat in that dark place, my thoughts started moving towards, do I want to do this? To what is my plan? I started coming up with the plan essentially to take my own life, because and like I said, it wasn't those issues specifically. It was a bunch of things that I had just been stuffing inside, I guess, over time. And I just finally was triggered to the point where I was like, I don't care to be here anymore. I don't know why I'm here on this earth. I don't see any point in living. Like, I don't have anybody. I don't have friends. I don't have family. I don't have a relationship. I don't have anybody. It is just me. Why am I here? And this is like a lot of me just crying and boo-hooing. And I'm in my apartment and I'm making a plan. I'm like, I'm past the point of caring. A lot of the times, because I'd struggled with suicidal thoughts and stuff before, but a lot of the times what would stop me would be other people. Like, I don't want to be a burden on somebody. I don't want somebody to have to plan a funeral for me or spend money on me, or like, I don't want to upset my mom, or I don't want someone to have to find me. Like, even in that moment, I was thinking of other people, like, I don't want to do that and then have to affect somebody else. But this night in particular, all of that was out the window. I was like, nobody cares about me. I don't care about anybody else. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm ready to go. So I just sat there for like several hours, just thinking and pondering and just going deeper and darker in my thoughts. And I don't know what. Actually, I do know what now, but I eventually ended up going to get my phone because my phone had been on the floor this whole time. I got my phone, charged it, turned it back on, and I decided to call the suicide hotline. And I had actually previously called them once before, probably like 3 or 4 months before. And to be honest, the first time I called them, it wasn't the best experience. They put me on the phone with somebody who literally, he sounded like he was reading a script. He was like, "So what's wrong? What's going on? Oh, you don't want to do," like it just wasn't really any kind of empathy or compassion or anything. And I just got off the phone like, dang, that's y'all's representative. Like, it just was not the best experience. So all that to say, I already like had that thought of like they ain't finna help me or whatever. But I called the hotline, and I ended up talking to this very, very sweet lady. And it's sad I don't even know her name. I wish I did. But I got on the phone with her and she listened to me. And I just started venting and telling her about everything that was going on, and that I didn't want to live anymore. And she said a lot of really sweet things. I could tell that she actually cared. She had empathy in her voice. But then she turned it on like, the people around me. She was like, well, have you told anybody about this? And I'm like, I tried, like, but no, like nobody really knows. And she was like, well, why don't you tell people? And I was like, nobody cares. That's why I'm in this position. And she kept harping on that. She was like, I really think you should tell somebody, like somebody around you. And I was telling her back, I'm like, I would, but nobody cares. I told her, I was like, I had a feeling that this was going to happen yesterday, and I tried to reach out to people and it didn't work. They ended up doing something else. And so she started like honing in on my mom, and she was like, I really think you should call your mom. And I was like, no, like, I'm telling you, she doesn't care. And she was like, I know that's what you think, but I really think you should call your mom. Sorry. And we literally, me and this lady on the suicide hotline, started going back and forth on the phone. And she was like, ma'am, I know that's how you feel, but I really think you should just let somebody know. I think you should call your mom and let her know what's going on. And it brings tears to my eyes because that was the enemy had drilled it in my head that nobody cared about me and nobody loved me. To the point where, like, even if somebody were to tell me, like, I had just come into agreement with that. Like, no, I'm telling you, they don't care. They don't love me. Nobody, nothing. And we just kept going back and forth. She was like, call her. And I was like, no. And I was like, and then finally I just had enough. And I'm like, okay. Like, I didn't know what else to do, but I was like, fine, if that's what you think is gonna help. I don't think so, but if I will, that's what I'll do. And she made me promise. She was like, Justin, as soon as we get off this phone, she was like, don't even think about it, don't even hesitate. As soon as we hang up, just call your mom and let her know what's going on. I was like, okay. I promised her, and that's exactly what I did. We got off the phone, and without thinking, I immediately clicked my mom's number and I started calling. She didn't answer. It went to voicemail, and I just left her a very simple voicemail. I was like, Mom, I really need to talk to you. please call me back. That was it. And I sat there on the couch in the same position. And by this point, I was so antsy. I was like shaking because I was on edge. And I'm like, now this lady done had me call my mama, and my mama didn't even answer. And now I don't know what to do. And I don't want to live anymore. And just, it was like a very on edge moment. And my mom called me back. It wasn't even like 5 or 10 minutes later. And when I tell y'all, you know, she called, I said hello, and I think she heard it in my voice in the voicemail. She was like, Justin, what's going on? I unleashed everything to my mom. I told her everything I was feeling and everything that was going on. I told her I didn't want to live anymore. I told her that I didn't know why I was there, and that I felt like nobody loved me, nobody cared about me, and I don't even love or care about myself anymore. And it brings tears to my eyes now because I can only imagine like how a parent would feel, you know, receiving a call like that in her point of view randomly. But as I'm talking to her, honestly, like I kind of felt like I blacked out because I don't even quite remember the conversation, but I do know I said everything. Everything that had been bottled up, everything that I had been filtering and acting like everything is fine before, I let her have it. And I don't know, I think at that moment it was just like I don't know what else I have to lose. Like I don't want to be here anymore, so at least you know. And I told her, I was like, the only reason I'm calling is because the lady on the suicide hotline begged me to call you. That's the only reason I'm calling you. So I'm just listening to her. And and once I finally, you know, stopped talking and calmed down and gave her a moment, I don't really even remember what all she said, but I know it was, you know, it was a lot of concern. Um, and she told me, Justin, you need to come home now. And so a lot more was said, but to sum it all up, this was probably around like midnight, 11 p.m. to midnight on a Saturday night. I was on an airplane by 6 a.m. the next morning, headed back to Louisiana. And one thing, before my mom and I got off the phone, she also made me promise, and she was like, Justin, can you promise me that for one, you won't do anything to yourself, but for two, you will get on this plane tomorrow morning? And I was like, yeah. I think at that point for me, I was happy somebody else was taking the reins. I was like, you think I need to come home? Fine, let's come home. I felt so out of control. There was so much going on. I didn't know how to process. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I have literally tried everything that I know to do, and it's not working. So you think I should come home? Fine. Like, I was glad somebody else was making the decision on what to do, because the only thing that I thought to do was to check out and not be here anymore. So I ended up going back to Louisiana, to my hometown, stay with my mom for a week. I lied to my job and told them that I had COVID because it's not funny. But my job was like actually firing people. Like, they were quick to fire people, and like the only like illness at the time that was respected was COVID. Like, as soon as you say COVID, nobody wants to deal with you. So, and thankfully they didn't ask me to prove it. So I just told them I got COVID, and they were like, okay, we'll see you in a week. So I went home, and it's interesting, once I was home, I just felt better. And I kind of thought like maybe it's just because I have my mom around, I have people around, like familiar setting, I don't know. But I felt better. And throughout this this week, you know, her and I talked a lot, and you know, she was trying her best to just help me, and it was kind of interesting because like while I was there, a part of me, I almost felt like I felt so much better that like I was like, I just wish it could stay like this. Like I didn't want to go back. Um, but I remember telling her in that initial conversation, I'm like, look, I've tried therapists, I've tried counseling, I'm in therapy now, I've talked to this person, I'm like, I literally was trying my best. I was trying my best to feel better. I would always be on YouTube looking up how to be happy, how to cure depression, how, like I was trying the best that I knew how, but nothing was working. And I told her, I was like, at this point, if I could talk to Pastor Davis, I would talk to him because I don't know what I'm doing. Like this is me when in that conversation when I'm like literally manic talking to her. So she brought that up. By the way, Pastor Davis is my pastor at I call it my home church now, the non-denominational church that my grandma started taking me to as a kid. That is now my mom's church as well. So I told her that on the phone. So during that week, you know, while I was there, she was actually trying to set that up. And at first, you know, when I told her that, she was like, well, why don't you talk to him? And I was like, I didn't want to bother him. I'm like, I don't really know him like that. I know him. He's literally watched me grow up. But another big lie is that I'm a burden to everybody. And I hated bothering people for things or asking people for things or having to rely on somebody else. But anyway, she set it up with him. And I think I was actually supposed to meet with him in person while I was there. Something ended up happening. I can't remember if he got COVID or maybe his wife got COVID, but something happened on their end where they were quarantined in their own home. But he did ended up talking to me on the phone. So we set it up, and this was towards like the later part of that week, maybe on like a Thursday or Friday. And I got on the phone with him, and you know, he was just asking me, he was like, so what's going on? I don't know what my mom told him, but you know, I started telling him about just how I'm struggling, and I don't know why I'm here, and I feel lost, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel like taking my life seemed to be the only option, and I don't know how, like, just telling him basically in a nutshell everything I had told my mom, but in a much calmer way. And what is so interesting to me is some of the first things he said, he was talking about God. And some of y'all are going to be like, obviously, but let me tell you something. Tell me why I was kind of shocked. Not shocked, but like I wasn't expecting him to talk about God so much. Like he just started talking about, you know, trusting God and praying to God and doing this with God and that with God. And I remember being on the other end of the line, like, I guess he is a pastor, so that makes sense. That just goes to show you where I was spiritually. That's why I'm bringing that up, because I didn't want to talk to my pastor so that he could tell me about God. I just wanted to talk to him like as somebody I respected, like a person I've seen like growing up. Like I respect him as a person. He seems, you know, successful, so maybe he has some good advice. I genuinely was not at any point thinking he's gonna tell me about God. So when we get on the phone, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he would do that. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. But we talked a good bit. I think we talked for about an hour, and he gave me a lot of great, you know, information. And I think overall my whole thing was like, I don't know what to do. At the time, like my lease was coming up. I think I had like 3 months on that probably. And I was telling him, I'm like, look, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should stay here. I don't know if I should stay in San Antonio, if I should try to move to another city in Texas. Should I try a completely different state? Like, I have no idea what to do. Should I go back to Shreveport? I was telling him, I'm like, I am so lost and confused. And I was telling him, I'm like, I really, the decisions I'm making haven't worked out for me. And I was like, I don't trust myself. And immediately when I said I don't trust myself, he replied and he was like, don't trust yourself. And I remember thinking, I didn't say this, but I was thinking, like, what you mean don't trust myself? It was kind of like the way he said it. It was a big emphasis, like, don't trust yourself. Like, you don't trust yourself. Trust God. And when he told me that, I was just kind of like, okay. And there were two things he said that, like, really stuck with me. That was the first one, when he was like, don't trust yourself, trust God. And the other one was when I was just explaining to him, I think he asked me, he was like, well, what made you even want to go to Texas? And I was like, well, you know, a lot of my peers go to Texas, and I just thought that Texas was the place to be, and I just liked Texas. It was like a lot of that kind of stuff. And I remember he was like, well, did you ask God? I remember in my head, I was like, no. Like, am I supposed to ask him those kinds of things? And I told him, I was like, no. And it was just kind of like this pause. And like the silence spoke for itself. In my mind, I'm like, I had a million questions. I didn't ask them at the time, but I was like, why would I ask God? How would I ask God? And how is an invisible God that don't speak supposed to answer me? Like, this was so like foreign to me, even though I grew up in the church. I was like, oh. So pretty much overall in this conversation, he's putting all the emphasis on God. I just called him because I thought, or wanted to talk to him because I thought he had good advice. Obviously now I'm like, duh, he's a pastor. But the end of the conversation, because I was kind of looking at him to help me make the decision, he was like, Justin, I can't tell you what to do. All I can tell you is you need to pray about it. You need to seek God about it. You know, now looking back on it, I can really see that this conversation was like the pivotal moment where things started to kind of shift. Mostly things in my mind started to shift. I, at no point during this time, was seeking God. Matter of fact, I forgot to mention this, but that night when I was going through it in my apartment in San Antonio, and my phone was on the floor, I got out my iPad and I recorded a video. And it was one of those videos where I'm like, if you're watching this, I'm no longer here. It was one of those videos, and in that, it kind of just turned into a rant. I said, I don't even know if I believe in God, because if God is really real, then why is he letting me suffer? So at this point, God is not in the picture in my mind. I'm struggling with even belief in God. But now I'm hearing my pastor tell me that God cares about the details, even as to where you're going to move or where you're going to be. And he's telling me that I have purpose and I have a plan for myself in God. And this, even though I've grown up in church, this is the first time I'm actually like, I have eyes to, or ears to hear and eyes to see, and I'm actually like receiving it. And I think his whole point with telling me, I can see it now, but back then when he was telling me, you know, don't trust yourself, the world would love nothing more than to tell us, trust yourself, follow your heart, believe in yourself, trust your gut. And the word of God actually does not tell us that at all. It tells us to follow Jesus, okay? To follow the Lord. But at the time I didn't quite understand. But I did I can, like, when I look at the trajectory of my life and where I'm at now, that was the moment where I just kind of pivoted. I didn't all the way make that turn, but it was just like, maybe he's on to something. So after I talked to my pastor, you know, towards the end, he didn't tell me what to do one way or another. He was like, I can't make that decision for you on where you should move and where you should go and what you should do. But you should pray. You should ask God. You should seek God. His whole thing was just like, I'm just the message man, but you should really, you know, that's who you need to talk to up there. I got off the phone with him, and like I said, I was already kind of feeling better just from being back home in this environment. But after I got off the phone with him, even though he didn't tell me what to do, I had like a just strong feeling of what I should do. And I thought that was to move back home. But honestly, I was so anti moving back home. I was anti my hometown. I was very much just the person that said I will never come back to my hometown. I'm only coming here to visit. So I still had this like ideology of that, but also feeling like I think this is where God actually wants me to be. And so right before I ended up coming back to San Antonio, because there was like a little thought like maybe I should just quit my job and just move here right now. But I actually didn't want to do that because, like I said before, even though I didn't care for my job, I liked it because it was a distraction. It was an 8 to 9 hour distraction where, you know, we worked in a secure room, so we didn't have phones, we didn't have internet. All we could do was our job. And even though I didn't like that, I did like that because it didn't give my mind enough time to just run wild with my thoughts. I mainly struggled in the evening time and at night because that's when I just had endless time to just think. So anyway, I did want to keep my job and I wanted to go back. But right before I went back, I remember having this thought and I was like, if I were to move back home, what would that even look like? Because by this point, I think I've been gone for about like 5 years. And I remember as soon as I said that, y'all, my mama got out the computer. She was on Zillow.com. She was already looking at houses available and apartments. She was so like willing to help me like move like right then and there. And I was like, well, wait, pump your brakes. Like I didn't say I'm moving. I just was like, what would it look like? I remember we started going and looking at like homes and like apartments and things like places for me to stay. And I was like, well, I guess I could go back to my college gym. And like, I was just kind of just starting to reimagine what would my daily life look like if I moved back home. And it just so happened the house not directly across the street from my mom, but a little bit over was for rent. And she knew the owner. I guess he was like a friend of the family. And y'all, one thing I love about being in a small town, one of the perks is that within like a few minutes of her telling me about this house, we were in the house walking around. She made a phone call to somebody who made a phone call to him. He showed up because he only lives like a few minutes away, just gave us the keys and let us walk in and view it. And this is coming from me who, one thing I didn't tell y'all is that when I was in San Antonio, I struggled to find a place to live. That's why I ended up living with my dad for so long. I cannot tell you how many apartments I toured and had to make schedules and appointments and applied and didn't get it and just all this hoopla. So that's why now with me, just within a few minutes, like, oh, here, go take a look. I was like, huh, I love that. So we went and looked in the place. It was okay. I didn't really care for it that much, but I was feeling like being so close to my mom. I was like, oh, I could literally just like walk across the street to your house. I didn't end up telling the landlord yay or nay because at that point my mind wasn't even made up. But just like at least knowing that, hey, if I do decide to come back home, there are possibilities and there are options. So after this, I ended up going back to San Antonio. I took a Greyhound bus back and I just kind of went back on with life as if nothing really had ever happened. But now I'm in San Antonio and I kind of have like a big decision to make. My lease is about to end. Well, it had about like 3 more months until it ended, but the place that I was staying at, they required a 2-month notice before you leave. So I knew like I need to figure out what I'm doing moving forward. If I need to extend my lease, if I need to give the notice, where am I going, etc., etc. Once I like go back, I'm really just thinking about it and at this point, like I said, I kind of know, like I have a strong feeling that I should move back home, but I'm scared. I'm just scared of what that means. And so at this point, it's a lot of like back and forth, like should I, shouldn't I? I'm talking to my mom like every single day. She's checking up on me and she's not telling me what to do, but she's strongly encouraging me to come back home. And it's just like this I think I know what I should do, but I'm not really sure, and like I'm trying to pray, but like I don't really know, and just all of this. Also, once, you know, I went back, I actually did start going to church. I went to CBC in San Antonio with Pastor Ed Newton, and I remember like I was like, oh, I actually really like church. Like it was one of the first times I was going to church like just for myself. I was going by myself, and I was like, man, like I've been here how long, and I'm just now going to church. And I remember this one day in particular, I got off of work, and there was a McDonald's like right down the street from my job. So I was gonna go through the drive-through. I planned to cook that afternoon, but I was gonna, before I cooked, because I knew it was gonna be a few hours, I just wanted to get like a little snack, like just a double cheap McDouble, something. But before I went to the drive-through, either my mom called me or I called my mom, something, and instead of going in the drive-through, I just parked. And I ended up talking to my mom on the phone for like over an hour, and we're going back and forth talking about the same thing we've been talking about. She's like, Justin, you know what you need to do, and I'm like, I know, but I don't want to. And I'm telling her like I'm just so scared, and da 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 da. And it's so interesting because like around this time I just kept seeing like things relating to fear and faith. I remember randomly like a Joel Osteen sermon was on, and he was preaching about, you know, faith and fear. And I would see like quotes like on social media, and even my mom, she would tell me like, oh, I just went to church this week. Guess what the message was on? Fear and faith. Like that just was so like heavy at the time. And so this particular evening, we're on the phone. I'm in McDonald's parking lot, and I'm just telling her like, I think I know what God wants me to do, but I'm just scared. Like I'm so scared. And she's telling me, she was like, Justin, like don't be fearful. Like you have to have faith. And we're just going back and forth. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. Like I'm so scared, and I just wish like, I don't know, I wish I had a sign or something, like just whatever. So we eventually like get off the phone. And by this point we've been talking for like over an hour. So I'm like pretty hungry. So I'm still planning to cook, but I go around the McDonald's drive-thru. I tell them what I want, like a cheeseburger or something. I get to the front window. All of this is important. There's a reason I'm giving y'all details, okay? I get to the first window, you know, give them my card. They take it. They're like, you can go ahead and move forward. I get to the second window, and I have a bone to pick with McDonald's because I cannot stand when they tell me to pull up. Just something about it irks me, and they still do it to this day. Anyway, I get to the second window, and the lady, she's like, hey, can you pull into like stall 3 something? It was not pulling up, but pulling into like a stall into the parking lot.
Hi.
Can I have you parking number 2, please?
Okay.
Thank you. And I'm like, okay. I pull into the stall, everything's fine, and I'm waiting for my food. And it's funny, I had this habit of, I was always recording myself in the car, or just recording myself in general, but especially in the car. So I actually have all of this on footage. I'd always be recording myself because, unfortunately, because I really just didn't have friends and I didn't really have people I could confide in, I made a habit of confiding to my phone. So it was almost like I would film videos of me talking to myself as an outlet, but I never intended for anybody to ever watch them, to watch them. So I have hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of me talking to my phone. A lot of them are me boohoo crying, just because that's like, some people journal. That was like my way to journal, to just get out whatever thoughts that I had on my mind. So I'm sitting in McDonald's parking lot, and I'm just waiting for my food. I'm noticing that it's starting to take a while. You know, 5 minutes passes by, 10 minutes passes by, 15 minutes pass by, and I'm noticing everybody that's coming behind me is getting their food. And all the people that were waiting before me already got their food. And I'm like,
Another car leaving. How many people have gotten their order?
Interesting. So 15 minutes turns into 20 minutes. And now at this point, like, I'm getting irritated. Like, now that I'm noticing, like, I'm not getting my food, I'm just getting more and more irritated. My little hungry is starting to become hangry, and now I'm like ticked off, and all of this is on footage of like, where is my food? So I literally start watching the clock, and I give it a certain time. I can't remember, maybe it was like 25 minutes, and I'm like, if they don't bring my food out by this time, I'm going back around, because I was ticked off by this point. I just started becoming so, I was already hungry, and now I'm angry because I feel like they playing in my face. That whatever time I set passed by, they still didn't bring my food. So I decided to go back around. Y'all, I hate confrontation. I'm not a confrontational person. There's been so many times where somebody will mess something up on my order, and I'll just say thank you because I don't want to deal with it. But at this point, I'm hungry. I already paid y'all my money. Where is my food? So I go back around. I'm at the window, or the where you tell them your order, and I'm like, hey, I ordered. I've been waiting for like 20 something minutes. Like, I never got my order. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, come to the first window. So I go to the first window. Really sweet lady. She was not a problem. And I was telling her my issue. I give her my receipt, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me figure out what happened. So she goes off in the back. By the way, I'm the only one here. Nobody in front of me, nobody behind me. And like a minute or so later, she comes back and she's like,
She said you went outside and you weren't there. No, I've been sitting there the whole time. And like 10 other cars have left since then. I'm like, wait a minute, I took order like...
The lady at the second window, she said she came out to give you your order, but you weren't there. Oh, I wasn't? Y'all. This made me so angry because I'm like, oh, so we're lying now? So she like calls the lady, and the window is closed by this point. So I can't hear them, but I can see the lady at the second window coming to the first window, and I can just tell she has an attitude because she's like she's like doing all of that, and I'm like, what did I do? I just came to order. Like, she was like mad at me. So then the first, she ends up like walking off. The first lady is like, oh, I'm so sorry, we'll just remake it for you. Like, what did you have? Like, she's asking me questions, and by this point I'm so irritated with this whole situation. I'm like, I don't even want it anymore. Can I please have my money back? Because y'all, I don't know about y'all, but I've heard that food preparers will do things with your food when they don't like you, and I wasn't about to give somebody that justification. I was like, please give me my refund. I don't even want the food anymore. So the sweet lady, she refunds me, puts it back on my card, and I end up leaving with nothing. And I am so irritated. I'm like, this, I just wasted 20 to 30 minutes just sitting in this parking lot. I am so hungry, and I'm like, I'm mad because the lady lied on me and just all of this stuff. I'm just irritated.
And why would somebody order their food and just leave? They like just forgot about it.
After I leave McDonald's, by this point, I was planning to go home and cook. Like I said, I was just there for like a little after work snack. I don't even want to cook anymore because I'm like, I'm hangry at this point. Like, I just want to eat something. So I decide to go to Raising Cane's, and I'm gonna go to the Raising Cane's closer to my house so it'll still be hot and fresh by the time I get home. And this is, there's a reason I'm saying all of this, okay? So I'm leaving the McDonald's, I'm headed to the Raising Cane's. It's about 20 minutes away because I'm trying to get to the one closer to home. And in order for me to get there, I have to get on one of the interstates, only for like maybe 2 miles. It's like get on and immediately get off. And so I'm driving, and I'm annoyed, and I'm angry, and I'm hungry, and I'm just like, oh, this is so annoying. And then I get onto the interstate, and at the time my car wasn't really doing well. It was going through this thing where I could only go so fast before it would like start shaking. So especially on the interstate, everybody else is probably going like 70, 80 around me. I'm only going like 50 to 60. So everybody is just zooming past me, you know, but I've been dealing with this for a while, so it's not like a big deal. I get on the interstate and I'm driving very slow compared to everybody else. And let me remind y'all, I know I just gave y'all a lot of information. Let me remind y'all the conversation I just had with my mom. I'm telling her I think I know what I need to do, but I'm just so scared. Da 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 da. Also, I don't think I told y'all this, but I prayed. After that conversation, I prayed and I was like, God, I need a sign. can you please send me a sign, and like a very obvious sign that I don't have to like wonder if it's from you or not. And I was like, God, I'm a little slow. I I literally told this to God. I was like, can you please send me a sign? Like, what am I supposed to do? Because I think I know what I need to do, but I'm just so scared. I was so scared. And then I heard all of this talk about like fear and faith, and even my mom, and just all of this stuff. And then after I get off the phone with her, I'm at McDonald's, they tick me off. Now I'm driving to the Raising Cane's close to my house. I get on the interstate, I'm going really slow, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. I'm in my car, there's an 18-wheeler in front of me, and there's tons of cars passing us up because I'm the slowest person on the interstate. I see coming out of my rear view a white truck just about to pass me up. I'm like, okay, I'm not thinking anything of it. And I hate that I stopped recording at this point, because I've been recording out the whole time at McDonald's, but I stopped recording. I see the white truck coming past me, not thinking anything of it, and then it passes me up, and then I'm looking at it from behind. In big white letters on the back of their windshield, it says, "Fear is a lack of faith." And I remember seeing it and just like driving, and I'm like, huh. I can't explain it to you. I can't explain it to you. It's something only God can explain. But something about seeing that sign, knowing I had just asked for one, and knowing that I was saying I'm so fearful, and I'm hearing like, well, you gotta have faith, you gotta have faith. And I'm like, I don't even know what faith is or how to have it. And seeing that sign, I immediately knew in that moment, like immediately, oh, I'm going back home. It was like decision was made, confirmation received. I'm going home. And it's crazy, like as I'm driving and I'm seeing it pass, it actually ends up going further. It gets in front of the 18-wheeler in front of me and exits off as I'm still going. So as I'm like driving, I'm like trying to reach for my phone to like take a picture. And unfortunately I wasn't able to get one, because it was literally like just such a split-second moment. But what blows my mind, and the reason I came and told y'all this whole long drawn out story, it wasn't really until like I got to the Raising Cane's, which wasn't that far from there, that I was like, wait, if that interaction only lasted maybe like 5 seconds between the time he came up, the time I see the message, and the time he exits and I've never seen him again. If I wouldn't have been delayed at McDonald's, I wouldn't have seen that.
There was a reason they didn't make my food at McDonald's. There's a reason I came to Raising Cane's.
And it was just, I have goosebumps right now thinking about it. It was just this moment of like, oh my gosh, God's talking to me. God's telling me this. And I hope y'all are like picking up what I'm putting down, because so I get to the Raising Cane's, and by this point, I'm so excited because I just heard from God. Like I literally asked God to send me a sign, and he sent me a sign, plain as day. And I immediately knew I'm going home. And before, I was so hungry and angry, but I end up parking in the Raising Cane's parking lot, and I call my mom back, and I'm like, you won't believe what just happened to me. And I'm telling her the whole story I just told y'all. And I get on the interstate, and it said fear is a lack of faith. And I was just like, Mom, like I'm coming home. And she was so excited for me. And the reason I'm tearing up is because I'm thinking back to that conversation when I called her and told her, when I was in my San Antonio apartment, I was telling her everything that was wrong. And I remember one of the things that I was telling her is like, I don't have a home. I'm like, this is my home. This is where I pay rent, but this is not my home. I'm like, I don't feel like my hometown is my home. I don't feel like Shreveport's my home. I don't feel like San Antonio is my home. I was like, I don't know where my home is, and that is why I want to leave. So now, present day then, for me to say something like I'm coming home, that just meant so much. And she was so happy and so excited. She's like, won't God do it? So yeah, that for me was like confirmation. Like, I don't know how, I don't know when, and I don't know how. I don't know. But what I do know is that I'm coming home. I asked God and he answered me. And I'm moving back home.
It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better.
So once that decision was set in place, it is so amazing how God moves. Everything just started like falling together. One of the biggest things for me was I wanted to make sure I had a job, because whenever I had first moved to San Antonio and I lived with my dad for a while, it took me 9 months to find a job. Like, at first I started applying to, places that, was more of the stuff that I had already been doing. But after like constantly getting rejection after rejection and no call after no call, I was applying to McDonald's, I was applying to Chick-fil-A, and even they weren't like hiring me. So it was such a struggle for me to get a job. But throughout those like 9 months, I really struggled just with like not having a routine. And so all of that to say, I felt like it was very important for me to have a job once I got here to my hometown, because I didn't want to just get here and be BSing all day, and so I was like, man, like, okay, I definitely know that I want to get a job. And it's interesting, one thing that I've kind of always said but I never actually thought would happen is that if I ever had to move back to my hometown, I would try to get my old job back that I worked when I was in college. So when I was in college, I worked for an attorney's office. I guess you could call me like a file clerk or something. I just helped run errands, answer calls. I just helped with whatever the paralegals and attorneys needed me to do. And I really liked working there. That's something I always said, but I never really thought it would happen because I was very much against moving back to my hometown. So now, fast forward, I know, oh, I'm actually moving back. That was, of course, my first thought was, I wonder if I could get my job back. So to make a long story short, because I know this is already long, I start thinking about how exactly I go about doing this. And I'll say out of this entire process, me asking for my job back was the hardest thing I had to do. And it wasn't because like the people that I work for are just mean people. I was just, like I said, I hate feeling like a burden. I hate asking people for anything. And I'm like, how am I supposed, because if you don't know, which you probably don't, this was like OOOG Justice Journey channel. When I originally left this job over 5 years ago, I left it like without any notice. I was going through a hard time. I literally just, it was like random. I left a note. I'm so sorry. Like, I can't continue working here. It was not how you're supposed to leave a job. So that was also over my head. Like, I shouldn't have left the way I did. Why would they let me come back? You know, it was just a lot of that. So I remember I kept stalling on this. Like, I was so scared to ask for my job back. But it was interesting. At the same time, I wasn't applying anywhere else. So it was like I knew that that's where I was going to be, but I wasn't actually taking action to get there. And my mom was telling me every single day, like, girl, you need to call these people. Like, it's getting closer and closer. And so finally one day, I remember before I called, I literally like was on the phone with my mom and we were doing like mock, like, she was like, okay, pretend I'm your boss. How are you going to ask me? And she was giving me tips and tricks. Shout out to my mom for that. But I finally bit the bullet and I was like, okay. So I called one of my former bosses and she didn't answer. And honestly, when she didn't answer, I was like, thank God. Because I literally was sweat. I just hate confrontation. And now I don't even know why I was like that. But I was so nervous. I was literally shaking. So she didn't answer. I left a voicemail. I was like, hey, just give me a call when I, like, you know, just acting like everything was normal. And I don't know, I just wasn't thinking anything of it. When I tell you, she immediately texted me back and she was like, hey, I'm at, she was out to some event, like something was going on where she couldn't answer the phone. She was like, I'll call you back as soon as it ends. When she texted me that, my stomach drops. I was so scared to call her back because, oh my gosh, y'all, when I tell you, I was shaking in my boots. So she finally calls me back. Literally, I like low-key had a script on my phone because I was so scared to like ask for my job back. But lo and behold, I did it. We talked, so we caught up for a bit, and she's so sweet. I don't even know why I was tripping, but I was like, hey, I'm moving back to so-and-so. Like, I just was wondering if you guys have any open positions, you know. If not, it's fine. Like, I'm very much like, I'm not trying to bother you, but you know, just wanted to put that out there. And she was so sweet. She was like, I think that would work, but she was like, you know, before I say yes, like let me talk to the other partners because she's not the only one. So we got off the phone and I was like, oh Jesus, I just felt like I could breathe. Like it wasn't a yes, but it, like at least I just got that part out because I had literally been stalling for weeks on making that phone call. We get off the phone and she says she's gonna ask the others in the morning because this was after the work hour or the work day. So literally the very next day I'm at work, and like I said before, we work in a secure room, no phone. So my phone was actually in my locker, so I didn't look back at my phone again until around lunchtime. So it's like noon the next day, I look at my phone, she texts me. Literally my heart sank and I'm like, oh Lord, what did she say? She literally said that she asked them and they all said yes. And they were like, we would love to have you back. I was like, don't make me cry right now. I was so excited. And I know I keep like taking y'all on a time lapse spin, but just remember what I said. It took me 9 months to find a job in San Antonio, Texas. It took me less than 24 hours to find a job in my hometown. So like, when God has something for you, things are just gonna fall into place, like for real, okay? So even though I had already received the confirmation from God that yes, I'm going back to my hometown, once I actually got the job, I'm like, okay, we can put things into play because like now like it's happening for real. So I went ahead, I gave my job a notice, I gave my apartment people a notice, you know, that I was moving out, and started making plans and preparations for me to go. And simultaneously at this time, I wasn't really feeling the house that my mom had showed me and the landlord had shown me that was like kind of right in front of her house. It was alright. But once like my boss told me like, hey, yeah, we would love to have you back, I immediately called my mom and I was like, hey, tell Mr. So-and-so I want the house, because like now it's like it's confirmed, it's happening, we moving. Tell me why. She calls me back however much later and she tells me I got some bad news. He just rented the house out yesterday. Dang it. I was like, what do you mean he rented out the house? Like, I was so upset. I was like, now where am I gonna stay? I mean, I know at the end of the day I could stay with my mom, but I really want my own place. I'm like, like now I have to find somewhere else to stay. But she was like, but wait, there's good news too. And she's like, when she was talking to him, he was like, well, you know, I have, you know, another house that's available. It's actually, you know, right around the corner. And just so happened, she and my grandmother like had already went to check out the house, and she was like, Justin, I think you're gonna love it. So I asked her, I was like, well, hey, what's the address? She sends me the address. I'm looking at Google because I'm like, I don't even want to wait until I get back. Like, I want to see what it looks like. And it's interesting, the Google Earth whatever images of the house, it was actually the house before it was renovated. But immediately from seeing it, I was like, oh, that's my house. And she ended up sending me some pictures of like what it looked like. And just so happened, I actually ended up having to go back to Louisiana for a funeral not too long after this. So while I was there, I was able to actually come in the house and view it and see it. And spoiler alert, I'm in the house right now. And it is just so beautiful, and it is I don't want to give too much away, but it's just more than I would have ever even imagined or asked for. I'm gonna just leave it at that. So everything's starting to come together. The confirmation from God. Now I have confidence in this decision. The job, the house, everything's moving into play. I'm starting to book the U-Haul. I'm starting to pack everything. And it's starting to get closer and closer to the time about where I'm finna move. And I mentioned this in my most recent video, but something else really special that had happened. If y'all remember, I went to a psychiatrist because I could have sworn I had ADHD. And I didn't. She was like, girl, you depressed and you got anxiety. Here's some medication. Well, while I was in the process of packing to move back to my hometown, every time I've moved, because I've gotten pretty good at it, I always pack a suitcase with things that I'm gonna need like immediately. So several outfits, toiletries, pajamas, just things that like I don't want to have to go searching through in boxes. So I was in the middle of packing that bag to make sure I would be good to go. And whenever I was packing all of my toiletries, my vitamins, medication, stuff like that, I had the anxiety medication in one hand, and the depression medication in the other. And I just felt this strong, it was like a thought that wasn't mine, but I didn't hear it audibly, but like I heard it, and it was just like, you don't need these anymore. Like talking about the medications. So I decided to go with it. I didn't know at the time, but that was the Holy Spirit talking to me. And I did not pack them. I guess I threw them away. I don't even remember what happened after that moment, but I've never seen them again since then. And I quit cold turkey. Now I have heard from multiple people, you are not supposed to do that. So I'm not recommending you to do anything. But I will say that our God is a God that surpasses all understanding. And from that moment on, I didn't need it anymore. I didn't struggle with depression or anxiety or anything like that. Just like that. Gone. I can't explain it. I really cannot. It's but God. So that was amazing. I continued packing the rest of my stuff. And now let's move forward to move out and move in day. The day that I finally was leaving San Antonio. Now, you've heard me, everything up until this point was just going my way. Everything was flowing. Everything is great. Now, the day that I actually moved out, when I tell you there was so much chaos and drama and hoopla, and the best way I can explain it is that I just knew. I knew without being told. I just knew that the enemy did not want me to leave. I knew that I was going where I was supposed to go, and the enemy was going to make sure he made every attempt to keep me down or to keep me there. I had a list, but that could be a whole separate video. But just some of the things were like we loaded everything into the U-Haul and then lost the U-Haul keys. We have no idea. But and then my mom ended up coming from Louisiana to help me move, and something went wrong with her car like along the way. And then what happened, whenever she parked at her hotel, like, because I think they stayed downtown or something, they had like an issue the day of the move, like actually finding their car. Like somehow they couldn't find, I don't know, it was something with that. And then actually getting the U-Haul. So since my car was having problems, we decided my mom's friend was gonna drive the U-Haul with my stuff. I was gonna ride in my mom's car, and my car was gonna get towed. So we had a U-Haul truck and a U-Haul trailer to tow my car because I just didn't trust it going that far. But we ended up having to leave the trailer at first because we couldn't like bring both the trailer and the U-Haul into the apartment. And whenever we got all the stuff moved out into the truck and went back for the trailer, they didn't want to give us the trailer even though we paid for it. So that was like a whole ordeal with them. Then my leasing, the apartment that I had been living at, I had already told them 2 months before, hey, I'm moving. And they knew, they were aware. But whenever I went into the office to like turn my keys in, the lady had like a whole attitude because it wasn't like the full 2 months. And I guess she thought that like I was skipping out on my lease, but I'm like, ma'am, I've paid in full. Like, what? I'm just giving you the key. And she was like, well, no, you keep the key until the day you move out. And I'm like, I'm moving out of state. I'm not coming back. Like, do you want me to mail you the key? She was like, no, y'all can't do that. Like, just keep the key and then bring it back to me the day of your move out. And I'm like, ma'am, I am moving out now. It was just a lot of like hoopla. At the end of the day, I think it was a misunderstanding because she ended up taking the key. But it was just so much. I think we had planned to leave at like 6 o'clock in the morning because this is a 7-hour drive, even longer being in a slow U-Haul. I don't think we left until probably 3 or 4 p.m. because it was just delay after delay and problem after problem. And I'm giving y'all the sped up, concise version. But I remember when we finally, like, the last thing we had to do was go pick up the U-Haul trailer to mount my car onto it, and so we could leave. After I just got into an argument with the people at the U-Haul, I just like sat in my mom's car and I just had like tears like rolling down my face. But it was tears of frustration because I'm just like, why is this so hard? Like, why? Like, whoa, like what is going on? But it was also like we kind of both had an understanding, like, the devil don't want you to go. Like, you are going where you're supposed to be, and he knows it, and he don't want you to go. So he's gonna try to have everybody offended and everybody mad at everybody. And I'm glad we had that understanding, so we didn't allow that to because I never at one point questioned, well, am I doing the right thing? Once I had that confirmation from God, I was like, oh, well, this is happening. So we made the journey. Even more stuff happened along the way, but I'm gonna spare you. And I came back to my hometown. I actually, the way it worked out, I ended up living with my mom for a month before I actually moved into my house, which I'm in right now. Yeah, that's pretty much my whole like journey to moving here. But definitely not the end of my testimony, so I could probably make a part 2, but I think I'm gonna just keep it all in one video. Now let's talk about how life was for me once I moved to my hometown. I started attending church regularly. I'd already kind of gone just a little bit towards the end of me being in San Antonio, but I started going to church, started back at my old job. And when I started back, it was honestly like I had never left. It was like, oh, well, you know what to do. Just get to it. So that was fine. And I was really loving like being back like around family, and just, you know, sometimes like in the big city, it can be like a lot to like meet up with people and do things. But when you're like in a small town and like, you know, my grandma stay across the street and my auntie's right up the corner, and I got like 15 cousins like within a 5-mile radius, you're bound to run into somebody. Like, it's not so hard to like stay connected. So I was just loving that, and just honestly loving not being depressed and not being sad and not having anxiety and not feeling alone. And I didn't understand how God did it, but I knew God did it. I had like confidence in, I've been trying for so long to do things my way, and it wasn't until I finally let go and let God that he showed out. So all of that is great. So I just, you know, kept like kind of continuing on. And I would love to leave this part out of my testimony, but it is important. So what had happened was, so not even a month into me being back into my hometown, I ended up meeting somebody. And said person shall be nameless. I met a guy that I liked, and to make a long story short, we met. We ended up like re-meeting not too long after that. Like, we kept running into each other and words were exchanged. He liked me, I liked him, we began talking. And I remember there was 1 week where everything just seemed to be perfect. Like, he was showing me so much attention, and y'all, literally I was like, oh, look at God. He cured me from depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. He gave me a new house, a new old city, a new job. He's done all this for me, and he gave me a man too. What would he do? I literally was like, oh my gosh, God just out here providing. Y'all, God did not send that man. Something else. But it wasn't God. Okay. So before we continue, something y'all should know about me with relationships, and I'm not really like proud to say this, but we're being vulnerable, is when I fall hard. I'm a lover girl. I fall hard and I get attached very easily. And you know, that always gets me in trouble because once I've realized that the person I'm talking to or with is not a person I should be talking to, it's very, very, very difficult for me to move on. This is something that I have dealt with literally since puberty. I don't know, since I've been a woman. So yeah, back to said man, everything was great for a week. Then he started acting funny and, you know, started ghosting me, started just not making me a priority, very wishy-washy, hot and cold. Like 1 minute he loved me, next minute he couldn't stand me, and then as soon as he couldn't stand me, I would back off, but then he wanted to be close again, and it was just so wishy-washy, hot and cold. Like I didn't understand, and I'm like, what's going on? And now looking back at it, I should have ended it right then, but I didn't. That after that 1 week of happiness, and then everything started changing. This lasted like about another 2 to 3 months of just going back and forth, fighting, being sad, crying over a man that I didn't even know before then. And I'm just like, why am I like this? Like, why am I still doing this? And so I remember, like, as I'm going through this and just like sad and like confused, and I'm like, I don't understand like why he doesn't like me like that. I would go like on YouTube and TikTok and social media and stuff, and I would be looking up like dating advice videos and like relationship advice videos, and I would come across, you know, these people who were talking and just, you know, giving me advice and whatnot. And the conclusion was that that man was a low effort man. He just wanted what was easy and wasn't actually willing to, anyway. Point of the story is not about him. As I'm watching these dating advice videos, and I'm watching a lot of them back to back to back, I started watching videos where it was dating advice, but it was dating advice with a Christian perspective or background, if you want to call it. One of my favorites is Jerry Flowers. He's actually a pastor in Houston. Him and his wife have a lot of videos on dating advice here on YouTube. So if you're going through the same issue, I recommend that you check it out. But I just remember like watching their videos and watching him talk about, you know, a godly man and godly love and kingdom relationship and kingdom marriages, and the way he was talking about things, it just really intrigued me because he was talking as if this is right, like as if God's way is the authority. And I don't really know how to verbally explain it, but it just really interested me. And I'm like, oh, like I think that's what I want. Like I think that's what like I'm searching after. So I just kept watching like more and more, and him explaining like, you know, things and why they do work and why guys do this, why girls do this, just all of this stuff. And like the purpose for marriage, like the purpose for a wife, the purpose for a husband. Just, I felt like I gained so much knowledge, and I'm like, man, why hasn't anyone ever told me this? Which I'm sure someone did because I grew up in church, but this is the first time I'm actually listening. So the more and more I begin to like consume that kind of content, for one, I let homeboy go. I was like, we ain't even on the same path. I don't even think he was a believer at the time. I'm like, I'm going in a different direction, so let him go. But the more I kept watching these videos on like Christian and godly dating advice, the more they would talk about God, I had so many questions and such an interest and an intrigueness, if that's a word. And I wanted to know more about God. So like every time like these people would say something that I didn't understand, maybe they would say a Bible verse or say, you know, back in the day when the Israelites were in the wilderness, you know, coming out of Egypt, and I didn't understand it, like I would pause the video and go seeking understanding. And all this to say, you know, this is months going by, and I kind of look up and I realize I'm watching all of this content. I'm watching sermons and all of this stuff. And at this point, it's not even about dating anymore. I've passed that point, and I have such a hunger and thirst to know about God and who He is and my relationship to Him and just like the gospel. And I like this time period for me, I explain it as if like I was just this sponge, like this sponge that endlessly was just like soaking up information. I could not get enough of God. Guys, it was church in my house every single day. Sunday was just the fun day where I go like to commune with other people, but it was church every day here. And I just could not get enough. And like the more I found out, the more I wanted to know. And I'm just like, wow, like it's so crazy because I grew up in the church. So I'm sure I've heard all of this before, but this was the first time I cared. So I just think that that's so interesting that that relationship was probably sent to knock me off my feet, and maybe for a little while it did, but all it did was just draw me so much more closer to God, intensely to God. And I fell in love with God and with the gospel and with Jesus and with the Bible and just all of this. So like I said, this is several months that I'm just concising for y'all, but I don't remember what exact day it was, but there was one day where I remember I was like upstairs in my room and I was like, you know what? I believe this, because so far to this point, I was just gaining information. I was gaining knowledge, but I hadn't really like I knew that I believed, but I hadn't like really said it or like professed it or anything. But there was one day where I was like, no, I actually believe this. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. Like I started understanding like why did He die and just all of these things. And I don't remember the exact day, but there was just a random day that I did say, God, I believe this. And I accept your salvation. Like I made that profession, I guess. And I don't remember what day it was, but I will say after that I decided, I was like, I want to make this official and I want to get baptized. So like y'all remember in the beginning, I've already been baptized twice, once in the Catholic Church as a baby, the second time I think I was in middle school in the Baptist church. Both times did not know what was going on, but I was like, you know what, I know what I believe now. I'm making this decision for me and me only. This is a public profession of my love between me and God, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. So I'm so happy to announce that on March 1st, 2023, your girl went down in that water and came back a new creature in Christ. And I am so excited. That was such a special moment because it just felt like, man, like even talking about it now, I'm just kind of having a moment because the very year before I wanted to end everything. And now I'm like, no, I have everything because I have God. Guys, from that moment until now, God has revealed so much and blessed me in so many ways. It's hard to even fully describe it. For one, God has given me a community, an entire community. Friendship was something that I prayed for over and over and over. I remember I would go to church and hear my pastor talking about how important it is to have good, like godly friends in your life. And you know, iron sharpens iron. So I would pray and I'm like, God, I need some iron to sharpen my iron. Like I need friends. Like I need friends who believe this too. And I remember like even saying like, God, if you could just send me one or two, it would be great if you could send me like a friend group, but I would be grateful for one or two. And do you know, God sent me an entire friend group. I literally have a community of people, all Bible believing, Christian thugging, Like, and it's so amazing. After going so many years just not having that, support, to now having that, and it's even more so because when we go through things, we're not just like venting to vent. Like, no, they're gonna correct me and be like, but the word says that, like, it's just so amazing. And God is just really just taking me in as, I don't know if you want to call it a prodigal daughter, but I truly do feel like I'm home now. I'm home physically, I'm back home, but I'm also home spiritually. And there's so much that I would love to say, and I can't wait to even make more videos and tell you guys just about, just there's so many like little things that God has done. But my journey to salvation was gradual. My personal story was not one where like one day I just heard the gospel and I just radically changed. I know that that's some people's story, but honestly most people that I talk to, it's a gradual process. So and throughout this gradual time period, I'm not even gonna say it was all necessarily just like flowers and rainbows. No, there was some tussling with my faith. I remember in particular one day I was in the car and I was listening to a gospel song. It was "I Give My Life Away" by William McDowell. And what's funny is I had heard this song hundreds of times before. I knew the lyrics by heart. But it was just one of those moments where I actually heard the song for the first time. Like, I knew what it said, but I actually sat there and listened to the lyrics and like took it in. And I have them here for y'all. It says, "Take my heart, take my life as a living sacrifice. All my dreams, all my plans, Lord, I place them in your hands." And then the bridge of the song says, "My life is not my own. To you I belong. I give myself to you." Now, I'm not gonna hold you, when I actually heard that song for the first time, like I actually realized what the song was saying, I was like, God, this is bad marketing. I was like, why would someone want to do this? And I had a moment where I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what's the point of us being here if all we're here for is to give our life to you? Like, what's the point of having free will? I just did not understand. And honestly, all I could see in that moment was like what all I would be losing in life. I'm like, so I can't do this. If I want to do this and you don't want me to do this, I can't do this. I'm just like, well, what's the point? I don't get it. Like, and all I can say is that my answer to that question really came like over time. And now, a year or so later, I can look back at that moment and realize that I was focusing so hard on everything that I would lose, because I couldn't really see on the other side. And I'm here to let y'all know that, yeah, there were some things that were lost, but the amount of things that have been gained in the process, God has given me peace. Do you know peace is priceless when you have just been living in your own chaotic mind, where the one voice I can't escape is my own inside my head? God has given me peace. He's given me joy. Even when things, I'm not saying I'm just like perfect and nothing ever happens. Things still happen, but I can literally have joy in a storm. It's crazy. He has given me fulfillment. He has given me happiness. He has given me love. He has become a true father to me, a spiritual father. And after the enemy had drilled it, literally drilled it in my head to the point where I believed it, that I was alone and lonely and nobody loved me or nobody cared about me, the fact that I have a spiritual father in heaven, that's priceless to me. Everything he has given me is good, even sometimes when I can't see it in the moment. And even now I can look back at my testimony, and thank him for it. I remember for a while, even after I was saved, I was like, God, why did I have to go through that? Like, why couldn't you have just shown up? Like, years before, I struggled for years with suicidal thoughts. It wasn't that one day I just wanted to take my own life. It was just one day I was tired of fighting. I gave up the fight. I had already been fighting for years in my head. I'm like, God, why did it take you so long? And it took me some time, but I realized that it was for His glory. Because if He would have saved me before I went through all of that, would I actually credit it to Him? Probably not. Would I have actually turned to Him in the way that I did? Probably not. Would I have such a hunger and thirst for Him now? Probably not. I truly believe everything happens for a reason, and even for those deepest, darkest moments, I'm thankful for them. You know, the last thing I want to share in this video, it's another story. I know this video is pretty long, but I felt like if you made it to this point, you would be able to appreciate it more here than if I put it somewhere else. I remember after getting saved and just really seeking God, I became more and more sensitive to His Spirit, and things started happening that were just unexplainable. I remember one of the first times God spoke to me through His Word, and I was going through a very specific issue at the time, and I remember being in my car, and I was parked in a random parking lot, and I was, talking to God about this issue, and a Bible verse just popped in my head. It wasn't the actual verse, it was Deuteronomy, and then the chapter and the specific number verse. And mind you, at this time, I don't know the Bible. I couldn't tell you where anything was anywhere, so this is nothing of my doing. I just had this random book, chapter, and verse pop in my head, and so I look at my phone on the Bible app, and I kid you not, it was pertaining to exactly the issue that I was struggling with. And I was just like, wow, like what the heck? Another time I remember I was going through something else I'll share it here. I was just dealing with like a lot of like comparison issues, like comparing myself to other people, feeling not good enough, not pretty enough, just whatever, like with my body, all kinds of stuff like that. And I was praying to God. I'm like, God, I know I shouldn't be feeling this way, but I feel this way. I don't really know what to do. And I just so happened to be going through some of my old boxes that had been in storage for a long time. And I came across a book that my grandmother had given me many years before. Honestly, probably 15 to 20 years before. And it was a Joyce Meyer book. And as I was going through all these books, I looked at it, and I just happened to kind of like just randomly open it up, and there was a bookmark in there. So I looked at the pages that the bookmark was in, and it was actually talking about Zacchaeus in the Bible. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But basically, Zacchaeus was a tax collector who was a short man, and it talks about how I guess Jesus was passing through whatever town he was in, and Zacchaeus couldn't see him. I hope I'm saying this right. Zacchaeus couldn't really like see over to get to Jesus, so he ended up climbing in a tree to talk to him. And the passage was actually talking about comparison and how even Zacchaeus didn't let his height stop him from seeking out the Lord. And now I'm just like, did I not just pray about this? Talk about a God that stands outside of time. Literally, He knew 15 years ago. I don't know if I put the bookmark there or my grandmother, because I had never read the book because I wasn't interested in God. I don't know who put the bookmark there, but now in 2023, He knew I was going to come across it and need it in that moment. To me, as these things are happening, I am just mind blown. And it's like, they keep happening. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like God is for real. Like, I mean, I kind of knew He was real, but like, He's like actually showing me that like, He's real. And so after like a while of stuff like this just happening, I have so many stories just back to back to back. There was a time period where I think it was only like a day, and I kind of felt like I hadn't heard from God. And honestly, it kind of had me in my feelings, and I'm like, God, like, where you at? Like, because I just kept like every single day, it was something new. It was this amazing feeling. It was just all these oohs and ahs. And now I'm like, God, where are you? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, I just started like kind of getting worried. I'm like, why aren't you showing up? Like, I was just really confused. And I remember, I think I went on TikTok and I like was looking up videos like what to do like when God is silent. And I came across, some people saying, sometimes God will test you and will try to like test your faith and make sure that you're actually with him for the right reasons, not for all the signs and wonders, but that you truly have faith in him. And I remember another lady saying, the teacher is usually silent during the test. And so after getting this, I'm like, oh, okay, I got you. So this whole like me not really hearing from God thing lasted another day or two. And I remember one night, it was late. I was about to go to sleep and I started talking to God. I started praying verbally, like out loud. And it's interesting. At first, my prayer started off very confident. I was like, you know what, God, I know you're testing me right now, but I'm going to pass this test because I know you're real. And even if you're being quiet right now, like, I know you're still here because that's what you told me. And I'm just going on and on and on. And at first it's like super like just casual and confident and like, I know you're here. And then the more I kept talking and wasn't hearing anything back, that confidence started to just dwindle away, and it kind of turned into snarky, like, okay, when's the test gonna be over? And then it kind of turned into worry, like, God, I'm trying my best to like understand that you're still with me, but I'm not really feeling it. And the more I kept talking, y'all, this conversation, it felt like it was just me with myself, lasted for at least a good 2 or 3 hours. I was just pouring my heart out, and towards the end of it I literally was in tears and I was crying and I'm like, God, why would you leave me? Why aren't you showing up for me? Like, what did I do wrong? And this and that. And I was just so concerned and I felt abandoned. And honestly, when I look back now at it, I think what it was is that I associated the absence of God's presence with where I was at that night in San Antonio. And not just that night, but all of those years that I was struggling and all of those years that I didn't know God. And I'm like, I didn't want to go back there. And I just automatically associated, oh my God, I did something, God's mad at me, he left me, like now I'm all by myself again, I'm gonna lose my mind again, I'm gonna want to take my life again. Like, I just literally, all of these emotions and feelings started rushing. And by this point, I'm literally talking out loud to God in my bed. It's probably like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I am crying and I start screaming and I'm like, why would you leave me? I don't understand. And it is just this complete like emotional train wreck that I'm going through, and I just keep going and going and going, and I just don't get it. And then I go so much that I literally wear myself out. Still didn't feel like I heard from God, but by this point I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know why he's not showing up for me. And I was like, I'm just gonna go to sleep at this point because I have work the next morning. So after I've said everything that I need to say, I have tears and snot and my face is just like a complete wreck. So I get up to go to the bathroom. I'm in the bathroom, I'm blowing my nose. I kind of, clean my face off. And then as I walk out of the bathroom, I'm about to go back into my room. And the way my house is designed, my bedroom and bathroom is upstairs, but then everything else, the common area, is downstairs. So as soon as I walk out of my bathroom, I'm right there at the top of the staircase. And as I'm there, it's the same thing that I heard in my apartment with the medication. I hear, but I don't hear, to go downstairs. And I'm like, what? And again, go downstairs. And I'm like, I'm not trying to go downstairs. I done screamed my head off. Now my head hurt. I got snot running down my face. I'm ready to go to sleep. I'm just like so over it. But after like pausing for like a minute, I'm like, you know what? Fine. I'll go downstairs. So I walk downstairs. As soon as I hit the bottom of the staircase on the first floor, I hear but don't hear, to walk the perimeter of my house. And by this point, I'm just confused and I'm like, what am I doing? Mind you, this is out of character for me. For me, when I go to bed, I don't go back downstairs until the next morning. When I'm in my room, I'm in my room for the night. So I'm just like, what am I doing? But I do what it says and I start walking around the indoor perimeter of my house. Now, it's an open floor plan, so my kitchen, dining room, living room is all out in the open, so I can pretty much already see everything just from like a quick glance. And I'm like, I don't see anything, but I'm still walking. And the only room that's kind of not in the open floor plan is I have like an extra room downstairs. And at the time, I was gonna make it like my office room, so the only thing I had in it was a desk and like just a little bookshelf that had just a few things on it. But other than that, it was completely empty. And as I'm walking the perimeter of the house, I start approaching that room and I'm kind of going down the hallway and I just start getting excited because I'm like, what if God is in the room? Like, what if like there's an angel there or like, I don't know, like I was just expecting like something spectacular. Because also another thing is that throughout this time period where God was being silent towards me, I would kind of do this thing where I would like, I don't know, like challenge God. And I'm like, God, if you're real, make this wind go from this way to that way. Or like, God, if you're real, I want to open my eyes and see an angel right now. And like, of course, those things like wouldn't happen. And then I would be disappointed. So now I'm like walking towards this office and I'm thinking, I think I'm about to see something. Like I just could feel that something was about to happen. And I finally make it into the doorway and I look, ain't nothing in there. And I'm like, come on, like I got out of my bed or came from upstairs for nothing. And so I ain't even gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed, but I kept walking. So I go in the room and I walk the perimeter. I go down one side of the room, nothing. Walk down the other part of the wall, nothing. Walk down the other part of the wall, nothing. And I turn. Now when I turn, mind you, I don't know what I'm looking for or what I'm even doing. I'm just being obedient to whatever it was that I heard. And I turn and I see something. But right quick, I need to pause and tell you guys so you can understand what I saw. Backpedal to like probably 6 months before when I had first moved into that house. I was unpacking everything and I came across this light board that I had had for a couple of years. It's like one of those like 3-tier light boards. They were really popular in like 2017. People would put like little messages on them or whatever. And whenever I first moved into my house, I took it out the box. I didn't really know what to do with it. And so I was sitting there thinking like, what could I put in here? It had just been sitting in storage for several years. But I decided, I'm like, ooh, you know what I should put? I should put in the light board what God told me in Texas. I should put what was on the white truck. So literally, I spelled out and put in the light board, fear is a lack of faith. And I sat it on the bookshelf in the room. And honestly, over time, I just kind of forgot it was there. It just kind of became like part of the decor. I don't know. Plus, I didn't really hardly ever go into that room. So now, fast forward to present day, after I just got done screaming at the Lord. And I'm like, why did you leave me? I'm so scared that you left me. Like, what is going on? This and this and that. I'm so confused. And then he leads me downstairs. He leads me to this room. I can't explain it, but at the second I saw the light board and I reread the message, fear is a lack of faith, I immediately began breaking down. And I felt the presence of God so strongly in that room at that moment. I just was like, oh my gosh, he's here. Not only is he here, but he was also up there. Guys, his presence just manifested, if you want to say, like in that room. I literally like was hunched over my desk, and all it felt like was like a hug, like a spiritual hug and like comfort that, Justin, I said what I said. If I said I'm never gonna leave you, I'm never gonna leave you. Like, I'm here. I'm not leaving you. I'm not going anywhere. And that moment really just taught me a lot, because like I've been saying before all of this, I just felt like nobody loved me and nobody cared about me, and I was all alone. And I feel like at that moment God broke down everything, and now I don't rely on feelings and oohs and ahs and signs and wonders to know if God's real. Like, he's already proven that to me, you know? So I just thought it was important to share that bit, because even after salvation, it's a journey. It's a complete faith journey and walk with Christ. And I don't know who needs to hear this. I don't know. I know I said a lot, but I don't know what part of my story might resonate with somebody. But it is my hope and my prayer, especially for that person who may be out there struggling, either in the same way or in a different way, that you know that God is real and God loves you and he has a purpose and a plan for you. You are not here by mistake. You are not here out of random chance. The fact that you're even watching this video now, the fact that you woke up this morning, that you have breath inside your body and blood pumping through your body, is evidence that God is not done with you. And whether you acknowledge him or not, he still is who he said he is. But I just hope that you know that life is a lot better with him than without him. And I had to learn that the hard way. You know, back when I was going through my dark moments, those years of just darkness, I remember one of the only things that gave me comfort at that time is that I would go online on social media and I would find a random person and they would be explaining exactly what I felt. They would be talking about how lost they felt and how they had no purpose and that they didn't want to be here anymore. And it's interesting because back then that gave me comfort, because I was like, well, even though I'm alone, I'm not alone, because there's tons of other people out there who feel that way. And now it just breaks my heart, because there's tons of other people out there who feel that way. And I know I can't tell anybody what to do, but it's just my heart that nobody lives like that. To be at war in your own mind is not okay. And to be hearing these lies, because I'm gonna be honest, there's a real enemy out there. People don't want to talk about it, but there is. And he will lie and cheat and steal and isolate you. All he cares about is your demise so he can hurt God himself. But I'm just here to tell you that there's another way, and it gets better. It truly does get better. And I'm so thankful for God for everything he has done for me. He has given me so much. He's given me a completely different life. And I really pray that, I don't know, sorry I'm getting emotional, but I just pray that he does the same for you. If you're going through that, or whatever you're going through, it could be something completely different. Just know that God is real. Call on his name. There is power in the name of Jesus. There's healing. There's freedom in his name. It's not the universe. The universe can't save you. It's not crystals or sage or anything this world, anything that was created, it is only God that can save you. And I just hope and pray one day, whoever you are watching this, you get to know him. And if you already know him, get to know him even more. I'm not saying any of this to say I'm a perfect person. Matter of fact, I'm the complete opposite. I still to this day have my own struggles and just things that I'm going through, but the difference is I'm going through it with God. I have his word. I have wisdom. His word is everything. It's literally like the manual to human life. So I'm gonna stop talking now. This video's been pretty long, but I love you so much and I'm praying for you. If there is anything I can do for you, if there are ways that I can pray for you, please leave them down below. If it's something that's private, my Instagram DMs are probably the best way you can reach out to me. But I'm so excited to finally get this out to y'all. It's been a long time coming. But I love you. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.